Welcome back everybody. Today we are going to start chapter 7, tribes, nomads and settled communities. You saw in chapter 2, 3 and 4 how kingdoms rose and fell. Even as this was happening, new arts, crafts and production activities flourished in towns and villages. Over the centuries, important political, social and economic developments had taken place, but social change was not the same everywhere because different kinds of societies evolved differently. So different kinds of society were evolving differently, so it was not at the same time. It is important to understand how and why this happened. In large parts of the subcontinent, society was already divided according to the rules of Varna. These rules, as prescribed by the Brahmanas, were accepted by the rulers of large kingdoms. So the rulers imposed the Varna system. The differences between the high and low and between the rich and poor increased. Under the Delhi Sultans and Mughals, this hierarchy between social classes grew further. So under the Sultans and the Mughals, this hierarchy of social classes grew furthermore. Beyond big cities, tribal societies, there were, however, other kinds of societies as well. Many societies in the subcontinent did not follow the social rules and rituals prescribed by the Brahmanas, nor were they divided into numerous unequal classes. Such societies are often called tribes. So there were tribes also. They were not under any system of social society, and members of each tribes were united by kinship bonds. Many tribes obtained their livelihood from agriculture. Others were hunter-gatherers or herders. Most often they combined these activities to make full use of the natural resources of the area in which they lived. Some tribes were nomadic and moved from one place to another. A tribal group controlled land and pastures jointly and divided this amongst household according to their own rules. So the tribal groups controlled their land and pastures jointly and divided these amongst households according to their own rules. Many large tribes thrived in different parts of the subcontinent. They usually lived in forests, hills, deserts and places difficult to reach. Sometimes they clashed with the more powerful caste-based societies. In various ways, the tribes retained their freedom and preserved their separate culture. But the caste-based and tribe societies also depended on each other for their diverse needs. This relationship of conflict and dependence gradually caused both society to change. Who were tribal people? Contemporary historians and travelers give very scanty information about tribes. A few exceptions apart, tribal people did not keep written records, but they preserved rich customs and oral traditions. These were passed down to each new generation. Present-day historians have started using such oral traditions to write tribal histories. Tribal people were found in almost every region of subcontinent. The area and influence of a tribe varied at different points of time. Some powerful tribes controlled large territories. In Punjab, the Khokhar tribe was very influential during the 13th and 14th centuries. Later, the Ghakar became more important. Their chief Kamal Khan Ghakar and was made a noble Mansabdar by Emperor Akbar. In Multan and Sindh, the Langaha and Arghuns dominated extensively regions before they were subdued by the Mughals. The Balochis were another large and powerful tribe in the northwest. They were divided into many smaller clans under different chiefs. In the western Himalaya lived the shepherd tribe of Gaddis. The distinct northeastern part of the subcontinent too was entirely dominated by tribes, the Nagas, the Ahoms and many others. So you can see in the map above the different tribes like Gonds, Bhils and many others are there. So you can see here Vetas in south, Cheros, Kots, Ahoms. So you can spot them in the map. A clan is a group of families or households claiming descent from a common ancestor. Tribal organization is often based on kinship or clan loyalties. So you can understand the clan, that is they are descendant of a common ancestor. In many areas of present day Bihar and Jharkhand, Chero chiefdoms had emerged by the 12th century. Raja Mansingh, Akbar's famous general, attacked and defeated the Cheros in 1591. A large amount of booty was taken from them, but they were not entirely subdued. Under Aurangzeb's Mughal forces captured many Chero fortresses and subjugated the tribe. The Mundas and Santas were among the other important tribes that lived in the region and also in Orissa and Bengal. The Maharashtra highlands and Karnataka were home to Kolis, Berats and numerous other. Kolis also lived in many areas of Gujarat. Further south there were large tribal population of Korogas, Vettars, Maravars and many others. The last tribes of Bhil was spread across western and central India. By the late 16th century, many of them had become settled agriculturists and some even zamindars. So in the late 16th century, they become settled agriculturists and even zamindars. Many Bhil clans nevertheless remained hunter-gatherers. The Gonds were found in great numbers across the present-day states of Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh. How nomads and mobile people lived. Nomadic pastoralists moved over long distances with their animals. They lived on milk and other pastoral products. They also exchanged wool, ghee, etc. with settled agriculturists for grain, cloth, utensils and other products. So you can see the figure 2, Bhils hunting deer by night, and in figure 3, a chain of mobile traders connected in India to the outside world. Here you can see nuts being gathered and loaded on the back of camels. Central Asian traders brought such goods to India and the Banjaras and the other traders carries these to the local market. So you can see it in the figure number 3. They brought and sold these goods as they moved from one place to another, transporting them on the animals. The Banjaras were the most important trader nomads. Their caravan was called Tanda. Sultan Alauddin Khalji, chapter 3, used the Banjaras to transport grains to the city markets. Emperor Jahangir wrote in his memoir that the Banjaras carried grains on their bullocks from different areas and sold it in towns. They transported food grains for the Mughal army during military campaigns. With a large army, there could be 1,000 bullocks, 1 lakh bullocks carrying grains. Nomads and itinerant groups. Nomads are wandering people. Many of them are pastoralists who roam from one pasture to another with their flock and herds. Similarly, itinerant groups such as craftspersons, peddlers, and entertainers travel from place to place practicing their different occupations. Both nomads and itinerant groups often visit the same places every year. So the Banjara, Peter Munde, an English trader who came to India during the early 17th century, had described the Banjaras as, "In the morning, we met a tanda of Banjaras with 14,000 oxen. They were all laden with grains such as wheat and rice. These Banjaras carries their household, wives and children along with them. One tanda consists of many families. Their way of life is similar to that of carriers who continuously travel from place to place. They own their oxen. They are sometimes hired by merchants, but most commonly they are themselves merchants. They buy grains where it is cheaply available and carry it to the places where it is dearer. From there they again reload their oxen with anything that can be profitably sold in other places. In a tanda there may be as many as 6 to 700 people. They do not travel more than 6 to 7 miles a day, that too in the cool weather. After unloading their oxen, they turn them free to graze as there is enough land here and no one there to forbid them. So this was the explanation. As Peter Munde seen the daily life of Banjaras. They were going from place to place. Many pastoral tribes reared and sold animals such as cattle and horses to the prosperous people. Different castes of petty peddlers also traveled from village to village. They made and sold wares such as ropes, reeds, straw matting, and coarse sacks. Sometimes mendicants acted as wandering merchants. There were castes of entertainers who performed in different towns and villages for their livelihood. So you can see a bronze crocodile, Kutia Kond tribe, Orissa. So very beautiful bronze crocodile. Changing society, new castes and hierarchies. As the economy and the needs of society grew, people with new skills were required. Smaller castes or jati emerged within varnas. For example, new castes appeared among the brahmanas. On the other hand, many tribes and social groups were taken into caste-based society and given the status of jati. Specialized artisans, smiths, carpenters, and masons were also recognized as separate jati by brahmanas. Jatis rather than varna became the basis of organizing society. Deliberation of jati. A 12th century inscription from Uyyakondan Udayar in Tiruchirappalli Taluk in present-day Tamil Nadu describes the deliberation in a Sabha, chapter 2 of Brahmanas. They deliberated on the status of group known as Raktakara, literally chariot makers. They laid down their occupations were to include architecture, building coaches and chariots, erecting gateways for temple with images in them, preparing wooden equipments used to perform sacrifices, building mandapas, making jewels for the king. Among the Kshatriyas, new Rajput clan became powerful by the 11th and 12th century. They belonged to the different lineages such as Hunas, Chandelas, Chalukyas and others. Some of these too had been tribes earlier. Many of these clans came to regarded as Rajput. They gradually replaced the older rulers, especially in agricultural areas. Here the developed society was emerging and rulers used their wealth to create powerful state. So some of the tribes recognized themselves as the new Rajputs. The rise of Rajput clan to the position of ruler set an example for the tribal people to follow. Gradually, with the support of the Brahmanas, many tribes became part of the caste system, but only the leading tribe families could join the ruling class. A large majority joined the lower jatis of caste society. On the other hand, many dominant tribes of Punjab, Sindh and the northwest frontier had adopted Islam quite earlier. They continued to reject the caste system. The unequal social order prescribed by Orthodox Hinduism was not widely accepted in these areas. So you can see a figure of a Gond woman. The emergence of a state is closely related to social change among the tribal people. Two examples of this important part of our history are described below. So you can see the closer look. The Gonds. The Gond lived in a vast forested region called Gondwana, a country inhabited by Gonds. They practiced shifting cultivation. The large Gond tribe was further divided into many smaller clans. Each clan had its own Raja or Rai. About the time that the power of the Delhi Sultans were declining, a few large Gond kingdoms were beginning to dominate the smaller Gond chief. The Akbarnama history of Akbar's reign mentioned the Gond kingdom of Gara Katananga that had 70,000 villages. So shifting civilized cultivation is a tree and bushes in a forest area are first cut and burned. The crops is sown in the ashes. When thus land loses its fertility, another plot of land is cleared and planted in the same way. The administrative system of these kingdoms was becoming centralized. The kingdom was divided into Gars. Each Gar was controlled by a particular Gond clan. This was further divided into units of 84 villages called Chaurasi. The Chaurasi was subdivided into Barhoth, which were made up of 12 villages each. The emergence of large state changed the nature of Gond society. Their basically equal society gradually got divided into unequal social classes. Brahmanas received land grants from the Gond Rajas and become more influential. The Gond chiefs now wished to be recognized as Rajputs. So Amandas, the Gond Raja of Garha Katanga, assumed the title of Sangram Shah. His son Dalpat married Princess Durgavati, the daughter of Salbahan, the Chandel Rajput Raja of Mahoba. So you can see the map of Gondwana in map 2. And figure 6 show a carved door, Gond tribe, Bastar area, Madhya Pradesh. Dalpat, however, died early. Rani Durgavati was very capable and started ruling on behalf of her 5-year-old son. Bir Narayan, under her, the kingdom became even more extensive. In 1565, the Mughal forces attacked under Asaf Khan, attacked Garha Katanga. A strong resistance was put up by Rani Durgavati. She was defeated and preferred to die rather than surrender. Her son too died fighting soon after. So they died. Garha was arrested. It earned much wealth by trapping and exporting wild elephants to other kingdoms. When the Mughals defeated the Gonds, they captured a huge booty of precious coins and elephants. They annexed part of the kingdom and granted the rest to Chandrashah, an uncle of Bir Narayan. Despite the fall of Garha Katanga, the Gond kingdom survived for some time. However, they became much weaker and later struggled unsuccessfully against the stronger Bandelas and Marathas. The Ahoms. The Ahoms migrated to the Brahmaputra valley from present Myanmar in the 13th century. They created a new state by suppressing the older political system to the Bhuiyan landlords during the 16th century. They annexed the kingdoms of Chutkia 1523 and of Koch Hajo 1581 and subjugated many other tribes. The Homs built a large state, and for this they used firearms as early as the 1530s. By the 1660s, they could even make high quality gunpowder and cannons. So by the 1660s, they could even make high quality gunpowder and cannons. So they were very advanced. However, the Ahoms faced many invasions from southwest. In 1662, the Mughals under Mir Jumla attacked the Ahoms kingdom. Despite their brave defense, the Ahoms were defeated, but direct Mughal control over the region could not last long. The Ahom state depended upon forced labor. Those forced to work for the state were called pikes. A census of the population was taken. Each village had to send a number of pikes by rotation. People from heavily populated areas were shifted to less populated places. Ahom clans were thus broken up. By the first half of the 17th century, the administration became quite centralized. So you can see the ear ornaments, Cowboy Naga tribe of Manipur. Very beautiful ear ornaments. Almost all adult males served in the army during war. At other times, they were engaged in building dams, irrigation system, and other public works. The Ahoms also introduced new method of rice cultivation. Ahom society was divided into clans or khels, and there were very few castes of artisans. So artisans in the Ahom areas came from the adjoining kingdoms. A khels often controlled several villages. The peasants was given land by the village community. Even the king could not take it away without the community's consent. Originally, the Ahoms worshipped their own tribal god. During the first half of the 17th century, however, the influence of Brahmanas increased. Temples and Brahmanas were granted land by the king. In the region of Sip Singh, 1714 to 1744, Hinduism became the predominant religion. But the Ahom kings did not completely give up their traditional belief after adopting Hinduism. Ahom society was very sophisticated. Poets and scholars were given land grants. Theatre was encouraged. Important works of Sanskrit were translated into the local language. Historical works known as Buranjis were also written first in the Ahom language and then in Assamese. So the conclusion is that considerable social change took place in the subcontinent during the period we have been examining. Varna-based society and tribal people constantly interacted with each other. This interaction caused both kinds of societies to adapt and change. There were many different tribes and they took up diverse livelihood. Over a period of time, many of them merged with caste-based society. Others, however, rejected both the caste system and the orthodox Hinduism. Some of the tribes established extensive state with a well-organized system of administration. They thus become politically powerful. This brought them into conflict with larger and more complex kingdoms and empires. The Mongols. First, find Mongolia in your atlas. The best known pastoral and hunter-gatherer tribe in history were the Mongols. They inhabited the grassland steppes of Central Asia and the forested area further north. By 1206, Genghis Khan had united the Mongol and Turkish tribe into a powerful military force. At the time of his death, 1227, he was the ruler of extensive territories. His successor created a vast empire at different points of time, it including parts of Russia, Eastern Europe, and also China and much of West Asia. The Mongols had well-organized military and administrative systems. These were based on the support of different ethnic and religious groups. So here the chapter 7 is finished. We will start the next chapter in the next class. Thank you.